It is time again for the PFF College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Williams. On today's episode, with the news of the Pac-12 coming back, I talked about that conference with former players of that conference, former offensive lineman from the University of Oregon, Geoff Schwartz, who is also a former NFL player and now an NFL analyst, and he has his own podcast, and former Stanford Cardinal offensive lineman, Sam Schwartzstein, who is also a former big boss man in the XFL, the director of football operations and strategy there. Also, of course, talked to Anthony Treash, previewing the games to come this weekend. Big weekend, especially in the SEC. Two huge games, Texas A&M and Alabama, which man, I would hope Texas A&M shows up for this game and doesn't give us what they gave to Vanderbilt last week. And Auburn and Georgia, that's the nightcap. And there's a couple of the Big 12 games that I think are interesting. Texas, TCU, OU, Iowa State. So me and Trash previewed those games. Excited for you guys to hear that later. And Mike Renner dropped by to talk a little bit about Joe Burrow, of course. I'm pretty sure this is the first time we've talked about Joe Burrow on the pod, and I will not be the last time, even though we're a college football podcast. And we talked about some other prospects that he's looking forward to watching this weekend. So without further ado, here's my interview with the two big boys, Sam and Geoff. All right, I'm now pleased to welcome to the PFF College Football Podcast two friends of mine who I was super excited to get on. Two great guys, Geoff Schwartz, former NFL player and current NFL analyst, and he's the host of the Geoff Schwartz is Smarter Than You podcast, and Sam Schwartzstein, who is the former director of football operations and strategy for the XFL. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
I'm glad to be here because that means the Pac-12 is coming back, and it's not for a couple of weeks or maybe 5 weeks, but I'm glad to be here and talk about the conference I love.
Likewise, big time college football being played out there. We'll still be able to see something great this year, which was fingers crossed. We'll all keep hoping.
Yeah, the Pac-12 is coming back in 5 weeks for 4 or 5 weeks basically, but we're actually going to see Pac-12 play. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to have you guys on is because both of you guys played in the Pac-12. Geoff at Oregon, Sam at Stanford. So I'll start with Sam. Look, it might be hard, but give me your rundown. Give me how Stanford wins not just the Pac-12, but wins the national title this year.
So if you go by the sports books, how a lot of them set their lines, all they care about is who's playing quarterback. If you believe Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback in the world, there's one quarterback ranked better than him coming out of high school, and that's Davis Mills, and we got him. Yes, I know KJ Costello threw for 9,000 yards last week, but we've got Davis Mills who beat him out. So I think that it's a great opportunity. He had a couple ACL injuries early, but hey, if you have the quarterback figured out, you can pretty much do anything else. And I think we have the right offense coming in. Coach Carberry's been in there. He's got all of his guys. Walker Little sitting out is not going to help, but we have guys. We have a young core. I've gotten to speak with him over the summer, and we have a good young core on the offense. And I think the defense, injury bug killed us. If we have the few injuries that I had when I was at Stanford, we had 0 games missed in 2010 and 1 games missed on the entire offensive line. So over 2 years, 1 total position missed a game. If we have that kind of luck, injury luck on our team again, we have a chance. But we have the quarterback, so that's pretty much all you need in college football.
Oregon, on the other side of things, is losing a quarterback in Justin Herbert. Geoff, are the Ducks going to do it finally this year?
Well, look, I can make a positive case for this year, and I agree with Sam with Stanford. They can't be as hurt as they were the last 2 seasons. It's like virtually impossible. Look, the thing about Oregon is they're the most talented team in the Pac-12 conference right now. Mark Cristobal is recruiting his butt off. They're 3rd right now heading into 2021. It would be the best class in Oregon history. They were 6th 2 years ago, 11 last year. And we're just a talented group of individuals. And it starts with our defense, weirdly enough. We had 3 players leave on defenses in the back end of our secondary. I believe a couple might come back. We're still waiting to hear on that. But our defense is still going to be a top 10 defense in college football. I'm telling you guys, I know that's weird to hear Oregon and Pac-12. If everyone had come back, if we played our full starting 11, we had one of the best defenses in the country, hands down. It's not a debate. They're that good. And it's weird to say that about Oregon because we've never been built on defense. But you have the 2 top linebacker recruits in the country. You have Kayvon Thibodeau, got a great nose tackle, got a great secondary, number 1 in the country now. Again, some of those guys left. Hope they come back. But that's our number 1 thing is going to be defense. And we have to replace 5 offensive linemen, which, Sam, you know is hard. But I trust Oregon to do that. That's the one program in the Pac-12 right now that is so O-line heavy. Mario Cristobal is the head coach of the football team. We've all been around football. Before a game, the head coach normally stands during warm-ups in the middle of the field. He's got his arms crossed. He's just looking at his team. Yeah. He's BSing with the next coach. Not Mario. Mario is running the offensive line drills before a game. Like, we are an offensive line factory now. We recruited the best offensive line in California. We're ready to go. So we're going to beat teams up. And we have a new quarterback in Taylor Shuck who's got to get into the rhythm of things. New OC this year. I totally expect our offense to be much different with Joe Moorhead, more explosive, more down the field, less reliant on the pistol. And so we have a great chance to go 7-0. And if we make a playoff, we're going to be competitive. I think, though, that I've always thought this, that next year and the year after that are our years. I mean, that's when we have this maturing class come in, 3rd or 4th year in the class. It's a talent game in college football. You have to amass talent to win championships. And Oregon is 2 years away from that happening.
Yeah, I agree on this.
Go ahead.
I agree with you, Geoff, about Joe Moorhead specifically. Buddy of mine, Kevin Renner, he's the run game coordinator at Old Dominion, was with him at Penn State as both a player and a GA. And wow, can that guy call plays, right? Yeah. And so he's going to simplify the game down for the quarterback. So you're reading middle of the field open and close, and then you're running RPOs off of it, and you're speeding the game up, right? And he's able to do a lot of those unique things that will get a young quarterback to be able to overperform.
But it's a very different offense. Like,
yes.
It's in a sense, it's almost good that you're. It's never good to have to return not a lot of players. But when you're changing offenses, it's almost like those guys don't even know anything else. They'll just kind of go into this new offense. We're talking power. We're talking, downhill, the RPOs, and that's so different than what Oregon was doing, like you said, in the pistol, going wide zone, outside zone, hitting the play action off of that. I actually really like Oregon quarterback. I don't even know how many snaps, how many throws, like 15 throws, 20 throws, something like that. But I also saw Spencer Rattler only throw 15 throws, and you could tell right away that he was going to in 2019, and he's turned out to be pretty good. I saw similar things with Tyler Shaw. He's like, he could play, man.
I'll give you one exact play. I'll give you the one exact play it was. I'll tell you exactly what it was. So Justin Herbert almost never audible in this offense. They called the play, they ran the play. I do not know why. In the NFL, in his 2 games, he audibles all the time. They just didn't let him audible. I don't know if they didn't let him or he wouldn't do it. Tyler Shaw comes in the end of the USC blowout. He changed a play against zero pressure, hit a slant for a touchdown.
Yeah.
The only time all season that Oregon changed any play to line of scrimmage, and he did it. And he didn't have to do it. They're up 4 scores. He could just kind of run the play and just, ran the ball and ran the clock out and be done with it. He changed the play, scored a touchdown. That, to me, I was like, I'm sold on this guy because, to your point, you can kind of tell early on if a guy has that it factor. And I felt like in that game he did. And he actually threw the ball well, and other times he played too. But I'm excited because the offense, and Sam brought it up, the offense is going to be different. I don't know if you guys watched Oregon last season. The offense was not very explosive. It wasn't very down-the-field oriented. It wasn't very creative at times. Joe Moorhead will bring that creativity. And when you RPO a bunch, it helps a young offensive line, right? Because it makes the defense guess a little bit. Is it a pass, is it a run? What do I do? So Oregon is going to be set up well. Again, maybe not this year. It's a weird year. But next year, the year after that, if we can keep Moorhead and keep Andy Alvo as our DC, we got a good chance to do great things.
Okay, so let's stick in the Pac-12 just for a little longer, and let's talk about teams that I'll just let you go. I'll throw it out there, like teams that either you think maybe is another national title contender in the Pac-12, or just a team that you think is going to be better than you expected. Sam?
Yeah, so the one that for me that I think will better than expected, and they've had a tumultuous offseason, but I loved Nick Rolovich at Hawaii. And so for Washington State, now it's a crazy thing they got going up there, but he kind of thrives under crazy. I think we all got introduced to him when he removed the benches at a game, one of his first games coaching at Hawaii. He was that coach. And, actually at the XFL, we were looking at him as one of our options to get for a coach because of what he does, right? He runs the run and shoot, brought it back to Hawaii, but he does a lot of crazy things on top of it, and he innovates each week, right? So that, to me, gives an opportunity. I think Borgie's underrated. I think he's a guy that can run downhill. You might think of him as a normal scat back, but he can run downhill. I saw him do a lot of damage to Stanford last year doing that. So I don't think they might not be a bowl team, but I think they're going to give people a lot of fits, and it's going to be something new that Pac-12 hasn't seen.
I agree with you that give people fits because unlike the air raid, the run and shoot is more just like, what's the best way to put it? You just kind of like run to open spaces. The air raid has some of that concept, but
football.
Like if there's no like, I ask people like, what's it? They're like, you just kind of like find open space and throw to it. Like it's hard for defenses to play against that offense, and especially with limited practices here. But I think the team, to me, this is all year long. I felt this way. The Cal Golden Bears, right? When Chase Garber, as their quarterback, played last year, played and finished a game because that didn't happen every time. He was 7-0, and it really clicked against Mississippi last year. He went on the road, they beat Mississippi, and ever since then, it kind of clicked for him. Cal needs to be better from their playmakers, which they have guys returning that can help with that. But they have a veteran offensive line. The only returning starter, I know Davis Mills is he returning starter? We consider him a returning starter. I mean, like just play a little bit.
If it helps our stats, yes. Anything to help us.
But I think that Cal is going to be really good. Their schedule, previous schedule lined up well. They had Oregon at home, like a look ahead for Oregon. They were playing like USC the following weekend. I think Cal is going to be good, folks. They're not national championship worthy, but they can make a run in the North, I think, in a really tough division. The North is much tougher. USC is not good, I don't think, but they can run the table in the South. The South is not good. So USC can end up 6-0, playing a 6-0 Oregon team in a Pac-12 championship game.
This was the first offseason that I really looked at the run and shoot, and I was shocked. The backside routes, I mean, they'll call whatever they want on the front side, like a 2-man combination or a 3-man, and the backside is just literally get open. It's like vertical get open, find a space, we don't care where, and then, Cole McDonald with his grenade launcher is going to find you. That's such a fun offense. But my team is, and I don't even know if they're going to win a million games. I don't even care. My team is the Arizona Wildcats with the end zone offense and Grant Gunnell, who came in last year, and honestly, he was really good. He was this tall, lanky kid. He's like 6'9" or something like that. He's super tall. He can absolutely sling it, super accurate, knows where to go to the football. So I think he can elevate them enough. Again, are they going to win a national title? No. Are they going to win the Pac-12? Probably not. But I think he might actually be the best quarterback in the Pac-12. I know that's saying a lot. Anyways, let's get off the Pac-12 right now. I brought you guys on because you're both former offensive linemen, and I just want to talk O-line right now. One of the things we hear time and time again when it comes to the NFL is that offensive linemen are coming into the league. They're not developed enough. They're not, they don't have this technique. They don't have that technique. They're not good, blah, blah, blah. Is that, I want to ask you guys, is that true? And if it is true, why? Like, what's going on in college and high school?
Well, I've talked about this a lot. I've written about it a lot. I'm very passionate about this subject. I think we actually are seeing a shift back to guys being more prepared, honestly. But really what it came down to is that for a long period of time in college football, the spread offense took over, right? Like the true spread. Guys in 2-point stances, ball, run, fast. And you look at the NFL game, and it's the exact opposite, right? It's a 3-point stance. It's violent. It's run blocking. It's pass blocking. It's a more varied offense. You would watch a player like Cam Robinson, for example, from Auburn in 2013. Greg Robinson, not Cam. Greg Robinson from Auburn. He was draft number 2 overall. He had great film at Auburn. But I'd be tough to find one block he had at Auburn that was anything like you do in the NFL. Yeah. And now you have less practice time in training camp, less offseason now, less hitting, and these guys cannot get ready in time. But I will say we're seeing now more college offenses go back to hands in the dirt, pro-style run schemes, pass protection from a 3-point stance, slow everything down. And even though it's no huddle, the pace of play is slowing down in college football back to what it used to be. So I think we're seeing from Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Iowa, Alabama. I think Oregon will be this way. Stanford was this way for a while, where these same 6, 7, 8 schools that are, I don't know if I mentioned Wisconsin, like kind of traditional. Ohio State is one of them as well. Hand in the dirt, run the football, and the transition is easier. I will say, though, the rookies this year, I think, have done a good job. Becton and Wills have done a good job so far of coming in and playing really well. So I think we're seeing it switch back a little bit. The guys being a little bit more prepared.
Yeah, I think it's at times the merging of the offenses, right? Childress, when he was with the Chiefs, he studied the air raid, so that's why they got into getting Pat Mahomes, right? That was kind of their entryway. So I think teams are borrowing from each other now there is transcending into the league a little bit, so that helps some teams. I think that private coaching has been a big deal because some of the best ways to win in college football is just recruit the players. So your job as a coach is to recruit more than it is to necessarily teach sometimes. And so then you're getting some guys in there talented, but then they don't really know how to flip that to the other side. And so I think that teams are, they're kind of merging. Then private coaching has been big, right? There's guys that are investing in themselves in the off season. They're exchanging information with other people. They're learning from online. I think that this generation learns from YouTube, and I don't think it's a problem that they can learn more things from YouTube nowadays than they ever could before than just having to listen to what your coach is saying. And there's a clear path to it. So I think that it's adapting. I think, like Geoff said, there are certain schools that are better at it than others and are going to and that will churn out those great linemen. I grew up in Texas, and Texas was the best thing in the world, but they went about 10 years without having a lineman drafted. Yeah. Right. And we would use that because I would host every Texas O-line recruit. Right. So I'd use that against them, right, to come to Stanford. And Stanford, we were pro style, we were like a bastardized John Gruden West Coast. And so we would have that hand in the dirt, doing that. But now it's kind of this blend between the two. Yeah. And then I look at guys like David Bakhtiari, he was a great player in college, but not the superstar he is now, right? And he's finding his own way to win, right? You shouldn't watch film on Bakhtiari to learn how to be better at football. that works for him, right? And I play with a guy like that, David DeCastro. Yeah. He got coached differently than everyone else, right? That was who he was. I think the private coaching is helping those players find out who they are and not be just a cookie-cutter player, right? And I think it's giving them more opportunities to learn that way.
I will second that because Duke Manyweather is my best friend, so I'm not going to pretend he's not. But he trains offensive linemen in Dallas, and he's the best at his job. And the only thing he does preach is that, look, there are fundamentals that are kind of basic to playing offensive line. But then you have to learn who you are, right? Are you a two-hand punch guy? Are you an independent punch guy? Are you Bakhtiari, who he doesn't hold everybody, but he's more of a grabber than he is a puncher, right? Like, you have to learn who you are. And I think we're seeing offensive line coaches now in the NFL a little younger now, and they realize that not everyone will do it the same way. And you have it, you teach a scheme and you teach a style, a technique, but there are tweaks with individual players. I think I play with coaches like this that were in the NFL that it was my way or the highway. I'm like, Coach, that doesn't really fit what I do well. I'm 6'7", 340. I'm not 6'3", 310. I'm not that player. I can't do what he did. Like, that's not what I do. I do something different. You signed me. Can I do what I've done best in my career? And I think we're seeing younger coaches now in the NFL say, look, okay, I get it. And they're calling Duke. They're calling Charles Bentley. They're talking to the trainers and working on a plan together to make these players better when they show back up to the facility.
And that's one place we were going to invest in the XFL had we move forward, was getting with LaCharles, getting with Duke, getting with these people, and having our players say, hey, we know your goal is going to the NFL. We're not here to do that, but to make sure you're the best player here, we're going to develop you. We're going to invest in you. And that was the one position where we felt like extra development would have helped our guys.
So, I mean, I can't speak as much as you guys can on like the individual O-line, coaches out there, the private coaches. But on the quarterback side, I can tell you that we're really seeing the fruits of private quarterback coaching for the past, let's say, 2 decades, where kids are coming into the NFL and they can play right away. At one of the harder positions, they can play right away. It's also why we're very we don't give people like a long leash anymore, because if you can't play right away, you probably can't play. So I think that is – I know it's helping quarterbacks get better. And listening to you guys, clearly it's helping offensive linemen get better. Geoff, you mentioned you talked about like different types of hand usage.
Yeah.
So this is what I was thinking. Okay, when I grew up and I was playing baseball, I still remember the first time a pitcher gave me a changeup or a curveball, because it's like, you know, you're 10 years old or whatever, you're 12 years old, and it's just like you've never seen anything like that before. Your knees buckle, you can't do it. So I was wondering, you two guys, do you guys remember like the first pass rusher that like came in and he had moves and he could move his hands, he could spin, he could do this, he could rip? Like, do you guys remember like that moment in your life where you're like, okay, now everything is different?
I mean, for me, a little bit was Haloti in college, but I didn't face him. I was a tackle in college. I didn't face Haloti. I just watched him just run guys over. But really, I was drafted to the Panthers. It was Julius Peppers, right? I mean, he's fourth all time in sacks. I don't think people realize that. He's like 154 sacks in his career. He's fourth all time. He's a half sack from being third all time. He could do everything, right? He could go by you, go inside of you. He had a hump move inside. He could spin. He could do whatever he wanted to you. So, I mean, that's the thing about people ask me the difference between college and the NFL. I say all the time, I said, in college, you know, see, I'm talking about in the Pac-12, there's like 2 pass rushers going to the pros. That's it. In the other weeks, you know, 75% of the time, you don't have to go very hard. You know, just go do enough to win all the reps. The NFL, obviously, everyone's in the NFL. You can't take a single rep off. And so you get to the NFL and you realize, like, oh boy, these guys can do a lot of different things. I never felt that way in college. I never faced a guy in college where I was like, wow, I got to worry about 2 or 3 different moves.
Yeah, Geoff, you were better than me at football. So the pass rush guys, you know, we played Cam Jordan, Tyson Alualu.
Oh yeah.
Deion Jordan, Gerald McCoy. We played in a bowl game. Beal was in. Like we played, and Brian Price was probably the best guy that we played. I don't remember him out of UCLA. That was probably the one that
I remember him. Yeah.
So we played a guy. He would do the Joe Green tilt, right? And you knew it was coming. This off the snap, inside hand would stay down, but he'd swim over the top, right? He would swipe your down hand. And so Harbaugh put it in the play. It was our first ever play. We put James McGillicuddy in. He'll be happy he heard his name. He's a big James McGillicuddy fan. But we put him in the backfield. He's an O lineman. And the first play we were in power eye and was just like, everyone clear out and cut him. We don't care if we get a yard, right? He's got to feel us. We were going to hurt him, but he's got to feel us play one. Yeah, and he still went over the top of Cuddy and hit the tackle. We're like, all right, we're not doing it. But, you know, like that was probably one. You know, in Texas, it's probably called the jab ole. Everyone calls it. It's the guy who normally has a bull rush, but he'll take the power step and then cut inside.
Yeah.
Texas, we called it the okey doke. That was the first ever pass rush move that really just, from the interior, was like eye-opening for me. And then I played with a guy, Chase Thomas, that had every move he could do. And Vic Fangio was our coordinator. So we would just put him everywhere. And so it was just find a way. He had really fast hands. We called him hot hands. And it was the swipe that was great with him, but then it was the ice pick to the neck. And like you just didn't know. And a guy, he was probably bringing only 255 with him, right? But his hands were strong enough that it felt like 295.
What was the thing that, okay, I'll try and pump you guys up now. Like, what was the thing that you guys like individually said, no matter what, I have this in my tool bag. No matter what, I can anchor, if it's an outside zone stuff, I can get there. I got speed. Like, what was something that you had always with you in games?
Well, once I knew that I got these mitts on you, that was it. Like if I got my mitts on you, I was good. And that's the way I played. Like in pass protection, I was jump setting as much as I could. The Howard Mudd, I love Howard Mudd's style of coaching. That's when I excelled in my game, was when I played with Andy Heck in Kansas City, a Howard Mudd trained offensive line coach. I want to get my hands on you. I remember the exact game it was in 2012 when D tackles that I played against just went from like bull rushing you, which I love. Please bull rush me. I'm 340 pounds. Please bull rush me. I don't care how strong you are. I will be fine with a bull rush. I remember playing Mike Daniels in 2012. I was on the Vikings, and I was at guard. It was 3rd and 10. And instead of lining up in a 3 technique, he moved out to like a 4-eye, and I was like, oh, yikes. And like I knew like that day that things had changed with pass rushers. And I knew that was a problem I have to deal with the rest of my career, and it was. Is that guys getting a little wider from me, away from my body. Like I wanted you. If I got these on you, man, it was over. And so that's what, for me, in any run game, pass game, very rarely, if I got my grip on you, I was letting go. So that was my goal, was to get there as soon as possible, get right there. Like, I'm not like, man, like my brother is exact opposite player, right? Mitch is like the most patient player of all time.
Yeah. His
hand usage is like beautiful, right? He's dropping his hand, he's faking stuff, he's Hamilton play. Like, I didn't do any of that. Just get my hands on you as soon as possible. It's probably why I got beat inside sometimes. Probably why, I could get, you whine out a little bit, I get beaten. But that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, for me, I cheated as much as possible.
Amen, baby. Amen.
As someone who ended up writing a rule book, my job was to know the rule book in and out. My job was to work the refs. Everyone said, "What's up, Sammy?" Pregame. I knew everyone's kids. And then once we got to the game, I was right before I'd snap, I'd move my left hand off my body. I'd make contact to that face mask and pass rush, and I'd get back.
Ooh.
I'd push off them back.
I won't say the name of what that's called. Sometimes it's a little inappropriate, but I love and it's outlawed now, but when it was fun to be able to do that, just right to the face mask, pop the guy up a little bit. Yeah. Just
shock him. I'd grab skin and, I remember Lewis Nix complained to the ref. He goes, "He pinching my nipples, man. He pinching my nipples." I did all that. Nothing dirty, right? Like, there's a difference between doing something dirty. When we saw the ankle twist, the gator roll, that was purposely to hurt somebody. This is different. On double teams, we practiced double teams so much. I got really good at timing up when the high leg would come in, and instead of just like pushing with him, I would torque this way. So I'd pull the opposite hand into me and then push that one, and that would turn their body, right? And I remember us, like, one D lineman asking in a joint, or one of our scrimmages, asking one of the refs, like, "Is this legal?" And I said, "You will never speak to the ref about that." Right? This is we don't ask about this. So that was another big thing. And then, for me, it was like, center, I think, is the easiest position. It gets like this big rap of how hard it is because you have to make all these line calls and everything, but you only have to learn half the playbook, right? So 96 power, for me, I block back. 97 power, I block back. So I only have to learn half the playbook versus the guard has to learn a double team back and then a pull. So if I do all my prep work throughout the week and I know exactly what's coming, then I can go flow chart. I don't have to think, right? And so knowing what the team's going to do, and we talked about this before, but college hashes tell you the whole story.
Oh yeah.
And then, Stanford, we didn't care that we would run a pro style, but it'd be college. So 2010, G-Row ran an entire game in slot because UCLA would walk Akeem Ayers out over the slot. So why would they took their best player out of their front seven. Okay. Like, we played the entire game in green right slot formation of the sideline. We didn't care. And so it was one of those things to where, okay, if I know that my coaches are going to get me in those positions, I can now beat them because I know what's coming beforehand.
Well, so you mentioned like communication, like, okay, so let's give yourself a little more credit because the center actually does have to communicate, like you said. What does that mean? Like for the people who've like never been around it, what is the communication between the center and the rest of his buddies up front and with the quarterback? Are we talking changing? Is he changing plays? Are we just doing protection? Are we just doing? Is he telling him what are we talking about here?
So the center's main role is to identify the mic, and I call it the mic point. I've gotten into hour-long arguments over whether it's just the point or whether it's the mic point. I like to call it the mic point because I'm the center and I always account for the mic.
It's one of those arguments that is so silly.
Irrelevant.
Like, just point.
Is a hot dog a sandwich? Is it a mic point?
He could be the will. Who gives a shit? It's the point. Like, it's a mic point. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
It's the mic point. It matters to me.
Plus, I don't know if you know this, Sam, but there's like 4 people on Twitter who care about this stuff, and you're one of them. So like, you're not really talking to a big audience here.
I went from a team that never did it, and then Mike Bloomgren came in and he was like, "How do you guys even identify the play?" So it's a big deal to me because I spent a lot of time going around this. And so for me, it's when you identify the mic, whether they're the mic in the program or not, that tells everyone else what their combinations are. So if you look at what power is in the playbook, a combination will go, the first combination will go -1 the mic, right? So the center has to tell you where that mic is in order to make it happen. Now, you can run funky formations like unbalanced or trips that'll make the guy who's in the mic in the program no longer the mic, right? And so this is the conversation we were having on Twitter about, what should they have done on the goal? New England should have done on the goal line against that bear. right? Because like Geoff pointed out, Bobby Wagner made that play backside, right? And so that's a big part of it. The next one is a very similar piece to the pass pro. You're identifying who the slide is going to.
Yeah.
Right. And identifying how the O-line can account for who they're supposed to. So a 5 or 6 man protection is typically the 4 down in the mic, or the 4 down and whoever you slide that protection to.
The point.
Yeah.
It's the will linebacker. It's a will linebacker. It's slide protection.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're running the jet, but if you're running key, you can just go to it. But that's what, and then the best centers, the guy I love to watch is Ryan Kelly, because the third level step is to understand where safeties are rotating.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's not just understanding, okay, this guy is normally here, but they're hiding something on the back end.
Yeah.
And they only have 3 guys covering 3 over here. I know the pressure can't come from there. I'm going to change the protection. And now you can account for it. So now you don't have to be hot.
Geoff, what's the biggest difference between doing all that, what we just talked about in college, and then to the NFL? Does it happen in college at all?
Yeah, I think it happens in college, but Sam's point earlier is the biggest point to make in all this, is that the hash marks in college tell you everything, because you mentioned safeties, and the next level thinker in the NFL is an offensive lineman. They know what the first level is doing, the second level, but the third level tells you what the second and first level are doing. So if you learn what the third level does, then you know what the other 2 are doing. So in college, let's say you're on the left hash and they're bringing a field pressure. So they're bringing pressure from the right. The will linebacker has to almost be front side to get to his zone in college, right? The safety has got to cheat way over to get there. In the NFL, when the hashes are closer, they don't have to cheat as much. So when you're in your stance, you're like, it's a little bit, but it's not. So it's not college, right? College, everything's there. And I think with tempo in college too, you're just not getting out all the calls, right? There's not a need to make sure everything's perfect because you're just going very fast. And especially in the pass game in the NFL, there's so many hots and sights built in that it is very important to make sure you get it right. And to your point about like Ryan Kelly and any center, is that most offenses on the run game, the center's in charge of everything, right? The center points that out. He changes the mic if he has to. He does all of that. In the pass game, it's with the quarterback. So Ryan Kelly can realize, okay, hey, Phillip, we got to change it over here. And there's an acknowledgement between Phillip Rivers and then the wide receivers of where the change is at for hots and sights and whatnot. But yeah, learning the safeties, even something as simple as you're running power and the safety's down in the box, right? The linebackers are going to fill that power differently than they would if the safety was back out of the box. So there's things to learn, backside linebacker. Is he going to run across on zone or not? If the safety's down, he's going to run. If not, then he's going to stay right there. You have a better angle for your block. So that's why safeties are so important to learn. As you get going, that becomes a big part of being a successful offensive lineman, in my opinion.
Yeah, there was
go ahead.
One thing I always I say the program a lot is like, don't trust the program all the time and what you're trying to do from a schematic standpoint. I look at the Seahawks defense and how they've been able to do that cover 3, and it's now everywhere. But they're oftentimes their strong safety that's in the box. At Stanford, we would count him as a linebacker way, and there's typically a guy who's like 185 pounds playing will. Well, he's really a safety body, right? So these bodies, and that's what the NFL is going to, is you're taking the program out of it.
Oh, yeah.
And you're turning it's into bodies, and now you should account for what bodies do you want to block.
I remember we would write down like who those guys are in my notebook, which I always keep. It's like it might be a football thing. Like I keep a notebook on my desk. I just write notes on it. Like there you go. See, perfect. Yeah. Like I have a finished one over here. I just write. This is my stuff for my gambling podcast later. So you would write down like all the numbers that would be like linebacker types. And, by the time I retired, it was like 12 guys, you're like every number possible that wasn't a defensive back, because to your point, they walk around and move around. We're seeing a lot of 4-1-6 dime looks where that safety now is the second linebacker. And so that's again why I think it's important to know your rules. I'm very almost anal about rules now when it comes to talking about the game on social media, because if you don't have rules, you don't understand why things happen. And then you can never make adjustments if you don't understand what's happening. And I think people look at offensive line play and look at schemes and think, oh, well, you could just help this person out. Like, why is that so hard? There's rules. There's reasons why we do things. Because then if you know what you're doing at a base level, then the adjustments are easy to make. If you know that you have the will linebacker in or really, the guy over left, who's ever in that left spot over there on 2 jet, it doesn't matter who that person is. As long as you have that guy, 4 down to whoever that fucking guy is, it doesn't matter who he is. And so that's why I think it's so important to know your rules. And we don't talk about that enough on social media, in my opinion.
Geoff, I just wanted to ask, I was looking at your Oregon career. So you, at the end of your career, you went from Gary Croton to Chip Kelly.
Yes.
Now, they're both like spread guys. I mean, maybe Croton now is more of a spread guy than he was back then. But from what I remember about Gary Croton is verbiage and plays and this, and there was a lot, at least at his time in LSU, it was like that.
Yeah.
Was that an insane transition to go for, or an easy one to go from Croton to, they're both good OCs, but like Chip was nothing.
There's a reason why Croton had only stayed a couple places, like 3 years at a time, right? Like it just kind of got a lot after a while, and we didn't make a lot of adjustments. I mean, the thing with Chip that was pretty incredible. So I was there. His first year was my last, and the simplicity of it, right? Just like we didn't have a ton of plays, and we just went fast, right? So everyone was just tired, right? And just we code word everything. We were out of the gate. We were running downhill. We were fast. But I just remember the confidence he had in the offense. And like if we screwed up a play in practice, there was no redoing it. It was just like, all right, well, we'll get on the back end, or we just screwed up. Like we'll go watch film on it. And there was this confidence about us. Like we knew that we were going to kick your ass. We were going to run fast. We were going to run the football a lot. That's what I understand. It's a run-based offense. It's a run-based offense first.
100%.
And it just was a ton of fun to play for him as OC. We had it was fun. We went to Stanford. We put a 55 that game in 07. I think it was 30. It was like 31-31.
That was my official visit.
Really? It was.
Yeah.
I think it was like 31-31 the fourth quarter. And we scored 4 touchdowns and put out of reach. Our defense was not that great back then.
That team should have won the national championship. Dennis Dixon was one of the best college football players I ever saw.
And every week we got better, right? We finally beat USC that year. That was the year. That was the year we finally toppled USC. I think we've lost to USC like only twice since then. I think like we don't. And like we toppled them that year. It was, and then you mentioned Dennis hurt his knee. We had a bunch of guys get hurt. It wasn't just Dennis. So it was a lot of fun playing that offense. I enjoyed it, and Chip's problem now, honestly, is that he doesn't change his offense. Everyone knows what you're doing now. Like you gotta do something different.
He's running a lot of shifts and motions, and it's like, wow, is he turning into Stanford now? Like is he like? Because I see him with multiple tight ends, but he's still out of the gun. It's still weird. The angles are weird when you have the long edge with 3 tight ends.
He doesn't trust DTR, I think. So he's trying to find ways to disguise what's happening. So he gets some open wide receivers.
It's like everyone's doing the Matt Canada stuff now. Just everyone's shifting. I always tell the story about my favorite thing. I don't know why I'm talking about Matt Canada now, but when he was in his first game at LSU, they played against BYU in the Superdome, and so they shifted to an unbalanced line. They just shifted. It was like first quarter, 15 minutes left, first play of the game. They shift, and the crowd, because everyone knew because he came over from Pitt and whatever. The crowd started applauding because they shifted, and of course, like they weren't that good that year. I mean, it was like the same old LSU offense from the pre-Burrow days. So, anyways, I always like to say that. Anyways, guys, this has been a fantastic discussion about the Pac-12 and an offensive line play. I just appreciate both of you guys for coming on. And I think you can find Geoff on Twitter at Geoff Schwartz. And you can find Sam on Twitter at Schwartzstein. So thanks, guys, for coming on.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All first-time depositors at Monkey Knife Fight that put at least $20 into their account while using promo code PFF will receive a free PFF Edge annual subscription. So that's a $40 value for just $20. And you'll get that opportunity to turn that $20 into even more money playing daily fantasy football and prop games at one of the fastest-growing fantasy sports sites in the USA, in Monkey Knife Fight. Go to Monkey Knife Fight and deposit your $20 with promo code PFF today to receive your free PFF Edge annual subscription. MooseFit is a premium online workout program and remote coaching service that provides you with daily workouts based on your goals, the time you have available, and the equipment you have at your disposal. Gyms still closed because of COVID and you don't have any equipment at your home or your apartment. MooseFit has a bodyweight program that will push you and challenge you. Heading on a beach vacation and looking to tighten things up a bit, MooseFit has a physique program. With 15 different pre-made programs, MooseFit has something for everyone. Additionally, MooseFit offers completely customized programs that are unique to each member. No two custom programs are the same. Purchase your MooseFit membership and a MooseFit coach will reach out to you with a questionnaire. Based on the information provided in the questionnaire, your MooseFit coach will either assign you a pre-made program to you or will create a custom program for you. All workouts are delivered to members through an easy-to-use mobile and desktop application that allows you and your coach to easily track your progress and make any adjustments to your program that may be necessary. Founded by a former Army Special Operatives captain and former Division I athlete turned professional CrossFit athlete, MooseFit is well equipped to help provide you with daily workouts that will challenge you and help you reach your health and fitness goals. For PFF listeners, use the code PFF50 and receive 50% off your first month. For more information, check them out on Instagram at MooseFit or their website www.moosefit.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm now joined by PFF Michael Renner. Austin Gale couldn't join us because he thinks he's better than us this week. So it's just me and you guys. So let's just get right into it. This weekend, huge slate of games kind of finally in college football. Who are the prospects that you're looking forward to watching the most?
That's a good question. The prospect I'm looking forward to watching the most, I think every week, is just Trevor Lawrence. Just watch that man play football. Can't go wrong. But I think after him, who I really want to see, there's one matchup I kind of want to see, and it's Seth Williams, Auburn wide receiver, against Tyson Campbell, Georgia cornerback. And why I say that is not because it's some exceptional matchup, but because Seth Williams last year, if you'll remember, they pumped him a ton of targets in that Auburn offense. Bo Nix was all over the place. So it was just basically he would throw it up to him anytime he felt like it, anytime he got in trouble. And so it was a lot of just jump balls, contested catches. And he really couldn't separate that well down the field, Seth Williams. But he was a sophomore and was 228 pounds something. This year, he looks a lot skinnier. I think he lost 10 or 15 pounds over the course of the offseason. And he looks like a different wide receiver altogether. From watching him week one, now they still pumped him some shitty targets. Bo Nix still was missing them left and right, which that's not going to change anytime soon. But I do think just from a prospect evaluation standpoint, I'm going to basically throw that 19 tape out the window, and what he does, in this SEC slate, it's going to be far, far, far more valuable to his draft stock. And going up against a guy like Tyson Campbell, who was hurt last year for a good portion of it, another guy where you're going to throw that tape out and you're going to focus on what he does this season. So I think it's a good matchup for both two guys who kind of have the physical ability to go round one, but I wouldn't put him in that conversation just yet.
So what is it about Seth Williams that you need to see out of him? If we can try our best to take the quarterback situation out, which I know is tough because, I think Bo Nix is going to be better this year, but obviously we just don't know if he's going to be an accurate thrower of the football throughout his career. So what is it that you need to see out of Seth Williams this year to make him a legit NFL, top round draft prospect? So
there's two things that you traditionally worry about when you have a big, guys who are in that contested catch mold. The Mike Williamses of the world. On one side, you got the Mike Williamses of the world, and on the other side, you got the Hakeem Butlers of the world.
Tight end.
Right?
Eagles tight end, Hakeem Butler.
And the thing is, both can be ridiculously productive in college, but the two things you worry about are getting off press coverage. And you watch Hakeem Butler back at Iowa State, the dude got bodied by 5'9", 180-pound corners. It could not get off press coverage just because you're not quick enough. Yes, you can play with physicality and throw corners around sometimes, but you've got to have a plan B in the NFL. You're not going to throw around NFL cornerbacks.
Well, sorry, just not to cut you off, but what's funny? Press corners have changed so much over the years, and we almost kind of think that press is this is a physical thing to do. And honestly, it's really just a quickness thing because no one is lunging forward anymore and putting their hands on your chest plate. It's all about mirror and quickness. So it's if you don't have that, if you're Hakeem Butler, you don't have that. You can't play. That's it. You can't play.
Yeah, it's not I think they used to call it a jam.
Yeah,
it was the old school. You call it a jam. That's not what it is. It's basically you're at the line and you're trying to get into a guy's pads as quickly as possible. Because if you're in his pads, then it's easy to stay with him on his whole route. Whereas if you're not in his pads, it's going to be difficult. So that's what modern press is. And that's what, like I said, you worry about with those big guys. Then you worry about their route breaks. Can they run a dig without looking like they're a school bus taking a turn? Can they stop and cut quickly? And I think you worry about that with those bigger guys again, because even just kind of like a basketball analogy, a 5'9" point guard is going to be, better at getting past you than a 6'5", shooting guard. Like they're much quicker, can maneuver much better when you have a lower center of gravity. So those taller wide receivers, you worry about it with that. So seeing those two things, and you're going to see a lot of press coverage if you're going up against Georgia. So seeing those two things, to me, what I want to see from Seth Williams.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point about like breaking at the top of your stem and not making yourself look like a school bus or like a cruise ship. And one of the things is like the taller guys have to start breaking like earlier, and that's such a hard thing to learn, I think, for a receiver, especially at that age when you've just been beating people your whole life. Like, especially we're talking about like a Hakeem Butler type, a Seth Williams type. Like they've been great in high school, and they can still get it done in college. But then when you get into the NFL, it's like no, the other guys can play too. You have to start shifting your center of gravity, like you said, to get down to like you were a 5'9" point guard a lot earlier before you break, in order for you to break properly and not like an 18-wheeler. Let's get into maybe we'll make this a weekly thing because I just want to talk about him every week. But let's talk about a rookie in the NFL who is doing very well, and that rookie is Joe Burrow. What have you seen, and why is he already a Hall of Famer?
Get the Roll Tide what shirt on. He's going to be a Hall of Famer for sure after what I've seen. No, I think there's two. Again, I keep doing these two things, but there's two very encouraging things from what I've seen from Burrow starting his career. One is that I think you just think about any rookie quarterback who has had early success and been successful. It's come with both, one, an offensive line usually in front of them, and two, a run-heavy offense. Like successful running game paired with that rookie quarterback. I think
like what rookie quarterback Ryan Tannehill has right now.
That's what I think any guy who's had immediate success has had those two things, or one of those two things at least. Joe Burrow is probably the only guy I can think of in the past decade who looks like an NFL quarterback right out the gate, and wholesale without those. Probably it's bottom 3 running game in the NFL, bottom 5 pass protection in the NFL. It's just been an awful situation. And yes, he has some good wide receivers, but John Ross is a disaster to throw to and try to get on the same page with. And AJ Green is not the AJ Green he once was. So the wide receiving core, not near what we thought it could have been on paper heading into this season. So from that perspective, like I said, without those two things, to still look good is insane to me because no one else has done it in the past decade.
This probably is asked more than any other question in the history of the draft in the NFL, but are you concerned about Joe Burrow's deep ball?
I don't think so because one, it was just so good in college, and two, he's accurate at every level, and three, like his misses have been, I think, the right kind of misses. Like he's not missing short into the field. He's missing either long or to the boundary. Mm-hmm. Like he's missing the right way, which
are you saying
the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, the Tom Brady's of the world, that's usually where they miss, is to the non-defensive side, to the wide receivers leverage. And so I just think it'll come in time.
Okay, so because I saw Mitch Trubisky miss deep and outside on a couple deep balls against Atlanta. So you're saying this is a good thing? You're saying Mitch Trubisky should be the starting quarterback for the Bears?
Well, I think we have a big enough sample size so that Mitch Trubisky is an equal opportunity misser. He'll miss any single way you want him to miss. So
that is correct.
I think we're getting to the sample size with Burrow, the fact that when he is missing, it's not him missing putting the ball back in harm's way. So. And I think just going back to LSU, that was the case most of the time there as well. So I'm not too worried. It's only been 16 opportunities. He's one of 16 right now. And a good deal of those were John Ross, which they're never going to be completed anyway. So
one of the things when I was looking up some Burrow stuff earlier, one of the things that I saw that I really liked was on throws that we chart as horizontal leads. And this is any depth of target. I think he's top 5 or even like top 3 in the league. Might be number 1, I forget, in the league on those type of throws. And what it shows is like, those are the throws. Those are NFL throws because you're throwing away from coverage in a lot of these circumstances, but also just shows his ability to track receivers and understand where they're going and where the ball should be based on their speed and their trajectory. So honestly, the results might not be great for Cincinnati this year, and honestly, kind of hope that they're bad so they can draft Penei Sewell. But yes. Yeah, exactly. But I'm with you. I think he's shown enough that he can play.
And a lot of people, when they think of accuracy, they think of it as, can I throw a ball to where I want to throw it? But there's also an aspect of, where do you want to throw it? You know, an aspect of, like you said, when the guy's running across the field, can you like anticipate where that guy is going to be at any particular time? Because that's a difficult part of accuracy as well.
I agree. As someone who is a very inaccurate quarterback, I definitely know the issues with accuracy. All right, Mike, thanks for joining us once again. I'll talk to you next week.
For sure, Seth. Thanks, man.
All right, I'm now joined by the big homie, Anthony Treash, coming at you once again this week. We're going to preview this weekend's games. It's getting going now, college football. We got a couple big ones, and I'm super excited because we're going to know a lot about the SEC this week, I think. We're like, the teams are going to be knocked out or like right away, I think. So anyways, we'll start in the SEC with a game that I know we both want to talk about because we're going to get to talk about Kyle Trask again. Florida versus South Carolina. Probably a game Florida shouldn't lose. Really, let's talk about Kyle Trask. What did you see from him on film last week against Ole Miss that you liked?
Yeah, and it was just kind of like a little bit more refined 2019 Kyle Trask. We didn't see, we saw half of the bad decisions. And then, of course, those 3 or 4 big-time throws he had, which were, he only had 9 last year, which is a promising sign of development. He's actually attacking downfield a little bit. But I'm still a little suspect. There were a few bad decisions in there that got me worried. And Ole Miss, that defense is not good. That offense is under Lane Kiffin. It looks pretty hot. I think that's going to be kind of their backbone of their success. But I think that defense might be at the bottom of the barrel in the SEC. So I need to see him do it a couple more times. And I don't know if I'm really optimistic that he's going to replicate that performance moving forward.
Yeah, I saw some nice throws, obviously, but a lot of like wide open receivers, and all back shoulder throws that I thought was nice. Okay, look, we knew he had accuracy. We knew that was never going to be a problem. But it's nice and easy when players are wide open like Kyle Trask was on that long touchdown. Do you see anything out of South Carolina last week that makes you think that they can go and beat Florida?
I don't know if they can beat them, but I do think Kyle Trask is going to have a couple interceptions just because they have a very good outside cornerback duo in J.C. Horn. Didn't allow a single yard in coverage last week in Israel Mukuamu. I think I said that right. I butcher it all the time. But he got hurt actually last week. He's supposed to be back. We'll see if he is. But if those two are on the field, I think that's going to be very, very hard for Kyle Trask and Florida's receivers there. So I think we're going to see a couple interceptions if they're both on the field. I don't think they're going to come away with the win, but I think we're going to be right back where we were in the Kyle Trask situation where we're on the other side of the fence and everyone's coming at us saying, well, it really wasn't this fault. The sun was pointing a different way. It was in his eyes. He didn't mean to throw that interception, making excuses. But I think that might be the case.
All right, let's move on to Ole Miss and Kentucky. I find this is an interesting matchup because Ole Miss got shredded through the air last week with Kyle Trask. Now Kentucky comes to town with a very different offense, a very different way to beat you. Who do you like in that game?
Yeah, I think I like Ole Miss here just because I really liked what we saw out of Matt Corral there, and especially Elijah Moore. I mean, that guy went off. 227 yards receiving, 10 catches. He's 5'9", shifty. He broke 4 tackles after the catch last week. He can do anything, whether, give him an underneath or a vertical route there. So I think, with those two, it's going to be it's going to definitely be an interesting matchup. I'm curious to see how they're going to use John Rice Plumlee. I wanted to see more of him, like I said before, just because I'm selfish. Yeah, he's one of those hashtag fun to watch guys. But I mean, I think Ole Miss with Matt Corral, I'm going with the better quarterback here. I think he's better than Terry Wilson, so that's where I'm leaning.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think that Ole Miss can be super explosive this year, and then Kentucky might be good on offense, but it's more of a churn you out type of offense with how good the offensive line is. And like you said, Terry Wilson's not as good as Corral is, and maybe not even as good as John Reese Plumlee is as a passer. So you really got to go. I agree. I think you have to take the explosive team here, because if Kentucky goes down early, I don't know how they're going to get back in the game. All right, we'll go to the Big 12 before we get back to the SEC. Texas and TCU. This is such a big game, I think, for both teams, because Texas really had a chance to lose last week. Sam Ellinger didn't play that well. TCU, on the other hand, had a chance to lose and didn't because Max Duggan came back in as quarterback for TCU after not getting the start after a really, really bad freshman season last year. He comes back in. He looks like a real boy again. Like, what are we talking about when we talk about Texas TCU?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Max Duggan. That was one of my favorite things I saw over this past weekend, just because of everything he went through in the offseason. He only had one uncatchable pass for the game. I believe he went perfect 6 for 6 on throws of 10-plus yards downfield for 172 yards, 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, I really liked what I saw out of Duggan. And, that TCU offense looked completely different with him under center versus Matthew Downing there. And this Texas team, they're sus. They're so fake.
That's my team, right? That's my team. What are we doing, man?
I can't do it. When Sam Ellinger, granted, he has played exceptionally well the last couple of years, but against a Texas Tech defense that got torched by Houston Baptist. In the first 3 quarters, he has a 62.9 passing grade. I think you can also attribute some of that to the play calling there, but at the end of the day, Sam Ellinger is the one throwing the ball. You just can't have that type of performance against perhaps one of the worst defenses in all of college football, including the group of 5 there. So I'm not sold on Texas. I wouldn't be surprised if TCU pulls off the upset. I think we're going to see a very down year in Big 12 football.
Yeah, just circling back to Max Duggan, because he was bad last year. This was a guy who just could not play quarterback. Well, we thought could not play quarterback at the FBS level, even though it was a true freshman. The accuracy wasn't there, the reads wasn't there. And then all of a sudden he comes in and he, again, like I said, he looked like a real boy, throwing the ball well, super accurate. Like you said, only one uncatchable pass. I also thought TCU had a great way to design down the field shots against Iowa's 3 safety defense, using play action to get the middle safety down, using quads one time, and then they couldn't, Iowa State was scrambling to adjust the quads. They couldn't do it. They get the guy down the field. So I thought that was a really good game plan by TCU. And, if this is the Duggan we have, maybe he's the better quarterback in this matchup against Sam Ellinger. I mean, okay, I shouldn't say that. That's going a little too far, but he was impressive. I think that's the main thing that we're both trying to get across, is he was impressive. All right, sticking with Iowa State, they got to go and play a pissed off Oklahoma team. Let's start with Iowa State, man. Is this it? Is Brock Purdy never going to be the guy we want him to be?
I think so, and I'm very, very sad about it. It's just I can't wrap my head around how he can make some of the throws he has made in the past. We talk about his anticipation has been, incredible these last couple of years, but then he has those plays like he's getting sacked and he just decides to throw the ball up in the air for I don't know what reason. He just kind of tries to be a little bit too much. He tries to do Mahomesian things at the college level and he just can't do it. So I think you can probably coach it out of him at some point, but just because accuracy. I mean, we just talked about Max Duggan. That's really, really rare to see someone go from terrible accuracy to one of the most accurate quarterbacks in college football. And Brock Purdy is very accurate with the ball. We have enough data and sample on him to know that. So, I think he can be a good college quarterback, but when we're starting to think about down the road, I don't know at the end of the day, our 2-for-1 drafts crew will have to get their opinion on that one. But yeah, I think Oklahoma's going to have, I think they're going to have a field day with this one. Like you said, because they're very pissed off after that one. I think Spencer Rattler, that guy's the real deal. He had a very, very few really, really bad throws there, especially that game sealer, for Kansas State to pull off the upset. But yeah, I think Brock Purdy, I'm bummed, but I think I'm throwing in the towel on my takes that he's a top 10 college quarterback, because he has not played anything like it so far.
Yeah, and the thing with Purdy is, like you said, like the anticipation and the accuracy, like it's still there. We have now like two years and a bit on him. He just, like, this season, he just keeps throwing the ball to the other team. Like, I don't even know what else to say. He just, like, he sees the other color jersey and he's throwing the ball to them. With Spencer Rattler, yeah, I saw the same thing. There were some weird plays. He's still, in his first year starting, saw some weird plays, but you also still saw, like, even so, he throws an interception down the sideline. It's one-on-one coverage. He takes a shot, not a bad read or anything. He kind of underthrows it, but even that one, just the way he looked, throwing the rock out there, he underthrew it a bit, but he just looks so natural when he throws the ball. So, they're pissed off, and I think Oklahoma settles things down and they get a W. One game in the ACC we want to talk about. Clemson's back this week. They play Virginia. What do we got here?
Yeah, I mean, I really like this Virginia team. I think they have a ton of little bit of secret superstars on both sides of the ball there. True freshman wide receiver. He's one of my new favorite guys, Lavelle Davis, 6'7". He had 8 targets on the day. 6 of them were go routes. The other one was a sluggo, and then the other one was off the scramble adjustment there. But I don't know how some of these defensive backs in the ACC are actually going to guard him. They tried to get him up, press man him at the line of scrimmage. They lost. I think he's going to be a very good player down the road. Brennan Armstrong, he got off to a slow start, but in that fourth quarter, he really turned it on. 94.5 passing grade. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they have Charles Snowden and Noah Taylor, two of my favorite guys, on defense, just because they're two tall, lanky linebackers. And you notice them on the field because you feel like they should probably be playing basketball. They're a center. They're not supposed to be these types of linebackers, but they're very good, whether they're dropping into coverage and in the pass rush. They're dangerous at the line of scrimmage with that length. I think it's Charles Snowden that leads college football with batted passes these last few years. But, at the end of the day, Clemson's going to blow them out just because
I like that. That's great. Just set Virginia up. Tell the listeners that this is the best team that's ever played college football before, and then, oh, by the way, they're going to lose.
Yeah, exactly. I hyped them up just because I thought they were not going to be good at all this year, but I think the offense might be something. But Trevor Lawrence, he might actually break Joe Burrow's records he set last year. Right now, it's only been 2 games, and he only played through 9 passes in one of them. But he's had 94% of his passes deemed accurate according to our ball charting process. That's over 20% higher than any other quarterback. It's just that was the only concern with him. Every once in a while he would have those just small little bouts of inaccuracy, and it was good, just was not at that elite level. And for some reason, it is looking sharp. We'll see how it progresses. Actually face some very good pass rushers. They already got Boogie Basham there, but he didn't have his best day. So I think this is going to be an interesting one to watch, just with some of the players on both teams. But yeah, Clemson's going to win this one by a lot.
All right, let's finish with the 2 big games in the SEC. We have the 3:30 game on CBS. That is Bama, Texas A&M. And so if this game was the first game of the season for both teams, I would have been like, hey, look out for Texas A&M. This is obviously this is the year they feel like they're gonna do some stuff, and they're actually a good team. They recruit well. Kellen Mond's gonna play hard, and after watching what Kellen Mond did against Vanderbilt, I can't say that anymore. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think this might be actually a bigger blowout than Clemson, Virginia. In all honesty, when you're looking at this Alabama offense, Mac Jones, he was actually our quarterback of the week last week. I know a lot of people were upset Kyle Trask was in that spot, but Mac Jones had an exceptional game. PFF grade, highest PFF grade of the week. I think somewhere around 93 after review. And then they have Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith. And what I really liked about Jalen Waddle in that game, he went off.
Don't get me started on Jalen Waddle.
He went off, and he didn't really get a whole lot of action. He had a few screens in there, but he never had one of those, 50-yard touchdown screens that we saw a few times last year. It's bound to happen at some point. And he already, that contested gap he had too, I mean, that's just incredible. So I think when you have those two wide receivers who might be two of the best wide receivers in college football, they're definitely up there. It's going to be hard to stop. And you're looking at their defense, Patrick Surtain and Josh Jobe manning the outside. I mean, those guys are lockdown players. So I think, Texas A&M is going to have a lot to handle in this one.
All right, and finishing off the nightcap, Auburn, Georgia. Auburn's defense played probably better than maybe we expected against the Kentucky team that we thought could run the ball on them. They were able to kind of snuff it out in the second half. Now the big bad the Bulldogs come to town. The quarterback situation is weird there. Stetson Bennett came in and played really well, albeit against obviously not a good Arkansas Razorbacks team. JT Daniels is cleared to play. We don't know, as we're recording this, we don't know who's going to be the starter, if it's going to be Stetson Bennett, if they're going to go back to the freshman Mathis, or if JT Daniels gets his first start as a Georgia Bulldog. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty wild to see. I think all three of them are gonna get substantial action in this one, and that's just kind of crazy because this Auburn team is really, really good. I feel like you would probably have to. I mean, I would roll with Stetson Bennett the whole way through in this one, and then when you get some low-tier SEC team, throw JT Daniels, and get Dwan Mathis some more reps because Auburn's actually looking pretty good. And Bo Nix, he struggled with consistency last year. He had a great game last week, and
really did.
Yeah, and he would have those types of game last year, but then he would follow it up with a really bad one. So I'm kind of curious to see how he kind of progresses, whether this is the real Bo Nix to stay, and if that is, I mean, with Seth Williams there, and of course that defense, Roger McCreary, he looked exceptional. He had that very clutch interception. Granted, it was a really bad pass, but still, really kind of saved the game against Kentucky there. That was really a game-changing moment. So I really like this Auburn team. I would be erring on the side of caution here if I were Georgia. I feel like they're kind of pressing their luck just because when they had Mathis out there, minus 0.7 EPA per pass play, which for perspective with Stetson Bennett, that was up to 0.34. That's a pretty wide margin there. So you go from one of the worst to maybe one of the 10 best offenses of the week 4. So, I mean, I think it might come back to bite him in the end.
My only concern with Bo Nix, and I agree, he played an outstanding game. I think his grade was somewhere in the mid-80s. A lot of plays outside the pocket. And it's one of those things where, okay, maybe that worked against Kentucky with Georgia's defense there. Can he make those same plays out of the pocket? If he does, honestly, Auburn has no reason to lose this game because they'll be better at the quarterback position most likely, whether it's Daniels or Bennett. Bo Nix is probably we both agree that consistency is the issue for him last year. Obviously, it was a true freshman, but high end, potential. I hate saying that word, but Bo Nix has that in him. So if he's making these plays outside of the pocket, they're going to be hard to beat. Anyways, Anthony, thanks for stopping by again, and we'll catch up with you after the weekend games. Thanks a lot. So that's it for this week. Me and Tony will be back with you on Monday morning recapping the weekend's big events. I will spend 30 minutes talking about LSU's assured destruction of Vanderbilt. And then we'll talk about the SEC games and the Big 12 games that we mentioned. And then come back and find us for the longer podcast next Thursday. All right, see you guys.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.